in a world that's very visually driven in terms of client result, being able to tell that story or relay it in audio of these are the improvements that people have experienced is actually, I think, a pretty cool blue ocean strategy for people that are like me and don't rely on before and after pictures to sell our programs. Welcome to Laundry Private Podcast. We have a case study episode today. This is going to be a fun one. This is Steph Gaudreau, and she is the creator of Strong with Steph. So we have a fitness coach on today, and Nora and I were just trying to be like, have we had a fitness person on yet? No, we've had a cyclist, we've had a runner, but we have not had like a fitness pro or coach. And I know they exist because I see their email addresses come through and stuff because it'll say stuff like fitness, da, da, da. So welcome, Steph.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit like how you make money online and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Like my mom asked me the same thing. She's like, so how does this work again? And I've been working full-time online since 2013. So, things have changed a lot in the online space, as I know you all know. And I've done a variety of things over the years, but currently the main way I generate income online and work with people is through my strength coaching app. So Strong with Steph. So I provide virtual programming for people, either templated or custom. I have some custom clients that I work with and deliver them programming and then check in with them every week. I have some nutrition coaching clients as well. So I'm sometimes working with people on that to the companion piece to lifting, since both of those things go together. So those are the two primary ways that I'm working with clients in a more high touch fashion or in a more sort of app delivery, here's your program sort of thing. People who are a little bit more independent and want to just know what they're doing when they get into the gym.
Cool. Nice. Yep. This is good. This is interesting because we've had, there's like certain niches, I guess, or like things online where they're more likely to have their own app. I'm saying that with like air quotes, right? Like, and I see fitness as one of them. And it's interesting. So I'm curious that where private podcasting fit in. I think when you mentioned at the beginning, you think you were around 2021, 2022. If you can kind of share, we were just like, oh my gosh, this makes sense. I want private podcasting. I see the connection, what that looked like for you. And then, I'm curious where the app fits in as it ties to this as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts for sure. So I think, probably early post-pandemic, people were looking for more options, while we were in the throes of it unfolding in real time. Of course, there were a lot of gyms closed. A lot of people couldn't go to work out. They were looking for solutions at home or more independently. And so you saw this really big rise, I think, in people going online. Now, I had already had online lifting programs prior to that.
Nice.
And the thing that I think that opened up was a lot more options, right? So people weren't just looking for, okay, I just need something to tell me what to lift when, but it was like, I want to work with somebody whose values I align with, or somebody who I think can understand what I'm going through. And so I think there was this explosion of coaches putting their stuff online, maybe for the first time, or opening up more services, more options for lifters. And that also made it really tough to stand out, as I'm sure you can imagine, right? There's just a lot of programs and people coming onto the market and offering things. And I think in the years since then, you've seen a lot of people have left the space, or they've gone back to reopening gyms. They're coaching in gyms, or they're actually going to lift at gyms. If they're on the owner side, they're opening up spaces again. And so I think we're sort of settling out back into this model where there's a little bit of everything and people can choose their own flavor, which I think is great. Not everybody wants to lift by themselves. Some people need a group. They want that community aspect. But at the time, I had a program and it was not on an app. It was living in PDF land, which is really difficult to use. It's actually really difficult to use a spreadsheet or a PDF, especially since most people are on their phones now, and it's hard to see on a tiny screen. And it's not always the most user-friendly because a lot of programs also started to have tons of other resources. So for example, I have a video library where I have over 24 videos where I'm talking to camera, walking you through how to do a deadlift. I'm talking about how to How do you know if you're lifting heavy enough? I'm essentially providing you coaching, even if you're not working with me in real time. And then all the demo videos, I'm got over 500 demo videos that I'm doing the exercises. So we had to kind of start looking for other options. So one of the things I started doing once I created the app, and I sort of rent app space. Like we didn't sit down with a developer.
Sure.
And get a giant loan.
That also blew up in that area, era too.
Create your own app, which is super. I don't think people realize how expensive that process is. So we sort of rent space on a platform where coaches can come and put their programs. But one of the things I started doing with Hello Audio was I wanted to offer another way for people to consume the content of the video library that I had. I call it the mental gym because I think you need to work out your brain too.
Uh-huh.
We need brain gains just as much as we need, muscle gains. And it's really important to me and how I do things as a coach and as a former educator that people understand the why.
Yep.
I want people to know and feel confident when they walk into the gym. They're like, I know why I'm doing this. So I'm more likely to follow through with it. It's not something she's just making me do to keep me busy.
Yes.
So I took the mental gym, which already existed in video form. And some of the videos, it also helps you to see visually what's going on. So I offer that as well. But one of the things I did was I turned all of my video library from the mental gym into a bonus, which I then put on Hello Audio. Because I know that my people are on the treadmill walking to warm up. Yeah. Or they're out for a walk, or they're more active. They want to also listen and consume content on the go. Not everybody wants to be stuck watching, they're like sitting here watching this like 14-minute video. And so I was able to take a lot of those conceptual videos about, well, how do I approach warm-up sets? What do I do if I took a vacation? What if I was sick for a week? How do I make the program work for me? How do I know I'm lifting heavy enough? All the things that people have asked me over the years when I work with them, I then put it into that audio format and deliver that as an extra bonus that they get when they sign up for the program. So I'm a strong believer, of course, being a former educator, that we need multiple different ways to appeal to people's different learning styles and things like that too. So they also have the video if they want to watch me going through some demo video, but they also have that sort of me as the coach in their ear. Who's talking about all of the other related topics, all of the things that people are like, but what about this? And what about that? And how do I navigate this? Because coaching for me at the end of the day is not just about, do 3 sets of 8 of that exercise. It's how do we handle all or nothing thinking in our fitness program, when that little devil on the shoulder is like, see, you messed that up. You have to go back and start all over again. And I'm like, no. Let's understand what that is first. That's binary thinking. Okay, we can recognize it. Now, how do we create another option somewhere in the middle? So we break the binary. We start to look at that flexible thinking, because it's all about consistency. And that looks different for different people in different phases of life. It might look different if you have little kids, if you just changed your job, all these things. So it's all of the skills and it's all of the issues that come up with people in midlife, because I mainly work with women over 40. So women typically 40s and 50s, although I have some clients in their 60s and 70s. It's what are the things that come up that challenge us to keep going to the gym, to keep lifting when we have lower energy, those sorts of things. So I tackle all of those things in that resource, and to be able to deliver it to people so that they can listen when they're warming up, or they can just dip into the app. They don't have to sit there and just watch YouTube. They've got options. And so that's how I use it in my lifting program, but I also use it for other things. So I can speak to that, but I'll stop talking if you want to go into more detail or questions.
I think just this one use case, I think, is really, really important. And whether you're, no matter what your space is, I think you brought up something that there's these roadblocks, these real roadblocks that will get in your client's way, your customer's way of getting results that they ultimately want. Right.
Whether and I think, it's any industry, right? Like I was just thinking about, I remember back like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe it was talking to Amanda Bond who ran ads. And I'm like, ads is also mental. Like it's not just like click this button, you know? And I think people, you as an educator get it, right? It's like, what's the mindset or like frame or like emotional intelligence necessary to like do the thing? Because doing the thing, if that's what they did and all they did was needed to do it, then everyone would be lifting. You know what I mean? So I love that because like, yeah, I want to like going where off of Nora's point, you know, to people listening, even though you're like, oh, well, I don't have a physical thing or like blah, blah, blah. Because even though we kind of angled the episode like that, it really could be anything, like any mindset stuff. And I know we get into like mindset stuff in the like coaching world, but I'm like, maybe you need more mindset stuff than you think, or like more conceptual framing than you would think. You know, it's not just like specific industries.
Well, when we're trying to make different choices, what we're really looking at is behavior change. And I was lucky enough to go through a whole certification a few years back on behavior change as it relates to things like health and fitness and drawing from psychological research and what do we know about those things. So one of the topics that I talk about is I don't expect my lifters to do 100% of their workouts, which a lot of people are like, wait, what? Like, don't you want them to get stronger, get results, build muscle? And I say yes, but it's also unrealistic to put the expectation on people that they're going to do 100% of everything. And that only further feeds into all or nothing thinking, which can then cause people to completely stop when they feel like they've messed up and they missed a workout. So we use this concept that if they can get 7 to 8 out of 10 workouts and they give it a great effort, like they're still going to get amazing results. I call it kind of like the get out of jail free card, but it is actually a concept from psychological research and behavior change. And the idea is, we've all seen this, is like you go to your favorite coffee shop and they give you a punch card and they say, once you get to 10 coffees, you get one free, but they've already given you 2 for free. You're more likely to keep going back and getting your stamps or your whatever, how they do it, because you feel like you've already made progress, even if that progress is artificial. And that's a concept that comes out of essentially psychology. So it's learning to work with people and their minds. And I think people say mindset as if it's this fluffy, like whatever, believe it and it'll happen. Or they don't want it to come across as just, overly positive spiritual bypassing without acknowledging that there's real roadblocks in the way for people. And we're ultimately trying to get people to engage with more fitness because we know not enough people currently do have that routine. So how can we help people engage in more fitness and do it for longer periods of time? I honestly don't care if somebody does a perfect 4 weeks. I want them to build more sustainable habits for years to come. So I think, you mentioned, Lindsay, mindset, and we're like, we're always talking about mindset, but how we approach behavior change, especially with health, fitness, and those sorts of things, nutrition, like that stuff is really crucial, really, really crucial. And so to have that for any coach or anybody who's working with people as part of your deliverables that you could give them is sort of like, these are the top 10 things that my clients or people I've worked with in the past, roadblocks they run into. Sometimes we just want to pretend that it's all going to be perfect.
Yeah.
We don't ask the hard questions right off the bat, or we don't anticipate that things are going to get tough. And I'm talking about speaking from, fitness coaching here. But one of the things I do when I bring a new person on is I ask them, I'm like, first of all, tell me about your life. Who's important to you in your life? Secondly, what's something you're excited about? And then lastly, what's a challenge you think is going to come up? We're not going to just be like, earmuffs, it's all going to be wonderful. No, we're going to be like, it's going to be challenging. We're going to have hard days. How are we going to navigate those? And I think the coaching space doesn't do enough of that. And I do think that one of the ways you can connect better with people, even if you don't work with them one-on-one or you don't get together with, a lot of my clients, they're at a price point, because it's what they can fit into their budget, where they don't get a lot of, FaceTime with me. And that's fine. But how do I still give them that experience that there's somebody there who understands them? There's somebody there who they can connect with in terms of a rapport, and somebody who's thought through their sticking points ahead of time. And then you give that to them as this treasure trove of coaching. that they can dip into any time, and then being able to deliver it also via audio in a really convenient way is really powerful.
I'm curious if you're with just that, because I know you're using it in more ways, and we're going to get to that in a second. But I'm curious with just that one feed, if you've gotten feedback from clients, or if that's something that even if you're noticing just downloads on the back end, so you're looking at your analytics and you're seeing that people are consuming it, or even just in how people are showing up when they do have, something that came up, or, they missed something, or how, just in terms of getting back on track and building those habits, have you noticed a difference with that being available?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that the feed has to be sequential in some way. You're going to have some episode at the top and some episode at the bottom, unless they run through as like, I already listened to that, and then it's going to bring up the next one. But you can't, you just have to, you're going to see that certain episodes, and sometimes I'll see this, whatever's toward the bottom will kind of drop off. It's oftentimes less listened to as you go down the list. But what I will say is some of my most popular episodes are the last ones I've uploaded, and my feed goes sequentially because I sort of start them with certain topics. And so I am seeing what people are searching for.
Yeah.
And the things that they are. And I think one of those popular episodes that I've done has been stuff like, what do I do if I took time off? I was sick. I went on vacation. Where should I start? How should I approach this in my workouts? Because that's a real life thing that people literally come up against all the time. I had a client message me the other day. She's like, my kid just got home and they threw up all over the floor. And I was like, okay, well, you don't have to work out tomorrow. Like if you need to be home, that's okay. And she also knows how she can work out at home. So she's got options, right? So I think I see that a lot. There are certain topics that people tend to gravitate toward a little bit more than others. And it is oftentimes it's not like, how do you bench press correctly? Sometimes, but it's more of those other supportive topics for when things go sideways. How do I approach it? And I have had a lot of people tell me that, when you start a program, there's a lot of stuff to take in. You're learning how to navigate the app. You're getting emails from me that are pointing out things about the program. And it's just a lot. It's a lot to process. And so to be able to go back to things later on and say, oh, I actually forgot about that. I can look that up, or I can listen to this tutorial, this, 10 minutes where you're coaching me through this, has been really powerful. I had one person pretty early on, and she said something like, I heard you talking about the mental gym, and I just thought like, oh, or whatever. And then she's like, I actually started listening to it and realized how incredible that is to just have that coaching advice and experience that I could listen to multiple times if I needed to. So yeah, we've had a lot of really great feedback from that, because it's also asynchronous, and people can do it on their own time.
I love that. You can use that quote to remind all of the other clients that maybe haven't quite engaged. Yeah. It's a great way to re-engage. Be like, I know this might, I'm feeling the eye roll. However, this is. Or
they're really just valuable. Like, oh, it's just like another thing. And I'm like, well, I mean, I think it's pretty good. So give it a shot.
You can do it on the go is always the best thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Being able to listen while you're doing other things, or washing the dishes, or, I listen to a lot of things when I meal prep on the weekend. So it's helpful.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So that's one way you're using private podcasts. Talk to us a little. You said there was another way that you're using them as well.
Yeah. So I have a nutrition coaching program, and this was, I think, the first way that we used it. And so I was kind of talking about 2020, 2021. Space is really changing a lot. People were moving a lot of stuff online. It's interesting. I've been in the online space for so long that I've seen the trends, things come, things go. So for a while there, people were really, really hot on blogging. Of course, I mean, that's how I got started. And then blogging was kind of like, passe. And that's coming back. And I mean, there's things that just cycle over and over again, tiny offers, or like self-liquidating offers, which is like, a $9 offer, $10 offer to get somebody in your world, give them some value. So I've just seen these things go around and around and around. And one of those is webinars.
Oh, yes.
The webinar. I have a love-hate with them. I eventually worked with a coach, and I started running webinars. I was like, all right, I'm going to open my mind to it again. Like, it's maybe a different time. I can do it in a way I feel really good about. It feels ethical. It's not slimy. And I did that for a while. And then I noticed those weren't converting quite as well. because we're all busy. And the idea that, if you're in B2B, business to business, right? You're a coach or you're a business owner and you're trying to go to a webinar to learn about something. Maybe you can make the time in the middle of the day, but most people can't do that. And then it's the evening, they need to go lift. They need to go take care of the kids or, doing school pickup. Like the idea of sitting down and watching something in real time, even though we provide a replay, I started to notice attendance was much, much lower. So one of the things I did was around the time I launched my nutrition program, which was back in 2021, I started thinking, how can I use private podcasting for this? I've been podcasting since 2015. So I know audio is really powerful. So one of the things I did was I get tons of questions about nutrition as it relates to fueling your body and making sure you have, the nutritional components if you're a hobbyist athlete to perform really well. Maybe you want to run a half marathon. How are you going to approach your nutrition for that? You want to start lifting, you're going to pay a little bit more attention to your recovery, and nutrition is an important part of recovery. So I have a group coaching program for nutrition. And one of the things I did was I took some of the webinar content that I normally would have sat down on Zoom and, okay, come this day, this time, and I turned it into a private podcast. So I could connect with people about some of the challenges that I see with my clients that I work with, right? What are the nutrition challenges that you're facing, and giving people insight and hopefully creating some of those aha moments. And whether they work with me right away or they come back to it later. Again, I think a lot of people they see webinar and they're just sort of waiting for the hard pitch to start. And sometimes there's a lot of value and sometimes there's not. And sometimes people are upfront about it and sometimes they're not. And so you get to that point and it's just like, oh gosh, I didn't know that this is going to be about selling. Mm-hmm. So I can do the private podcast and I offer that as a way for people to get a little bit more insight into what are the nutrition challenges I see with my clients? What are some ways we can approach this? And I tell them right up front, I'm like, in the last episode, I'm going to talk to you about if you want to work with me. So if you want to stick around and listen to that, you can. But I make it its own episode. So frankly, if people don't ever want to listen to it, it's okay. I hope they will. But I like that I can kind of compartmentalize it in that way too. So that's how I use it sort of as a lead magnet for that. And then inside of the coaching program, I actually use it for delivery as well. So all of our lessons, again, I talked about the idea of having multiple ways to connect with different types of learners. And we really try to take great pains to make sure that people have lots of ways that they can consume the content. So there's transcript if you want to read. There's audio only if you prefer to listen or if you're visually impaired, right? And like watching the screen isn't actually that easy for you for different reasons. So one of the ways that we've taken that course content, so we've got course content, all the different modules, and then they can come to live calls. So we've got all of our course content, same thing on audio, so people can listen on the go. They can watch it once if they want and kind of get the visuals, because there are visuals, but then they can come back to it again and listen to certain sections. And then we do a weekly coaching call. And I'm very proud to say that we've now had weekly coaching calls for almost 5 years. Wow. And we have all of our weekly coaching calls recorded and placed on their own feed for people that can't attend. So we use a Hello Audio feed to deliver the recording of our live group coaching call. Yeah, so we've got two separate feeds.
Favorite use case.
Yeah, so we have two separate feeds for the course, or nice. 3 separate feeds really. We have a feed for a lead magnet. We have a feed for course content that's pre-made, and then we have a feed for live calls.
Yes, love that. That's exactly what we recommend.
Yeah.
So yes.
Particularly too with the lead magnet connection, because it's kind of like this, you probably are attracting people who might lean a little more audio and a little more busy, right? You know what I mean? And so then it's like they can actually be like, let's say you didn't offer it inside. It would just be like, well, wait, where is it? That was nice or whatever. It's just making that same delivery that if they want that, right? And so, yes, so we love recommending that. It just kind of keeps that thread going and pulling people through and definitely taking care of the people that already like that content. And then, like you said, too, you have a public podcast. So then you have a public podcast where people then could sign up for that lead magnet and keep that thread going. Like, no need to drop audio. And I think that's the thing that we didn't realize Hello Audio would do back when we created it. But it's just like, it's a medium, right? Like, so there's no reason it just should be a public podcast, should only have audio, right?
Yeah. And I think the private podcast gives you that unique opportunity to, when I do the public facing podcast, and I've now had that since 2015, I've taken little breaks here and there, but I have 450 episodes recorded over the years. And obviously, like, things have changed and the way people engage in podcasting has changed.
Yeah.
But I will say that time and time again, I ask people when they enroll in my program, how did you hear about me? And many of them say podcast. Many of them say podcast. So I think it's a nice way to sort of dip a toe into the world of, like, who am I as a coach? Like, why might you want to work with me? What's my philosophy? That sort of thing. I bring guests on as well who support other things I don't necessarily talk about in terms of, like physical therapy, for example. I'm not a physical therapist. Like, I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I've got to bring in other people who have expertise in certain areas. But I will say that the public facing podcast is a much broader net, or a much broader set of topics. And with the private podcast, I can then say, hey, listen, if you are a woman over 40, you're a hobbyist athlete, or you're somebody who values performance, you realize you need a clear framework and system for fueling yourself well, and not ending up exhausted and too tired to train and all the things you want to do. Like, here's this very specific set of episodes that are going to take you deeper on that. And I think that that's, sure, there are series-based public facing podcasts out there, but maybe not everybody's interested in all of those topics. Yep. So for me, I can say, okay, here's this thing, and put it in its own container, if you will, and say, here, if you want to go deeper on this topic, you can, and then make that a much more seamless sort of experience. I do try to get much more to the point. On the private podcast for that lead magnet, not that I scripted it out word for word, but I was like, okay, here's what episode 1's going to be, episode 2, 3, 4, 5. And I want to take people through a very specific set of topics to move them from, like, oh, okay, this is what the challenge is. Here are some ways that we can fix it. And then if I do want to take a step to actually fixing it and working with a coach, this is what's on offer. And that's a little bit harder to do on the regular podcast, where I'm trying to get information out, but it's not always following a very specific set of, we're not always doing like, a 5-part series on XYZ. So it's not to say that you couldn't. I'm just trying to cut away some of the extra stuff, because I do tend to, go on tangents from time to time again on the podcast. And I think that's the nice part, is you can kind of be more off the cuff. But in the private podcast, I try to be very, okay, to the point. Here's what we're going to talk about. Here's why I want you to know this. Here's how we can work together if you want to take a step to do that.
Yeah, that very intentional sequencing of a conversation. And I think we do have a lot of folks listening that may have a public podcast, and we think public podcasts are great. I mean, obviously we enjoy meeting people, right? And this is more of a, when you have those topics and you can have the freedom to talk about whatever those topics and, kind of take those tangents as wherever they lead you. It's almost like it's a catcher. It's a conversation starter. And each one of those episodes are going to start a different conversation, whether it's physical therapy, whether it's nutrition, whether it's training to run that half marathon or whatever that might be, right? Re-engaging in strength training after 40. I think the lead magnet then gives you the ability to take from that conversation starter, to talk to them about, if you are interested in this, then, to take them into this conversation that now is more sequenced for belief building, for belief shifting, to help them have whatever those epiphanies that they need to have to be most likely to say, yes, actually, I want to work with someone, and not just someone, but with you. And I think that's the role of that private, which I love, because you can't necessarily do that on a public podcast. And in that way, that's going to really engage and move that person through an actual conversation. Because, we all listen to different podcasts here. I know our podcast apps are loaded with different things. And we go from, one topic, which is maybe it's true crime, to like business, to right? Or parenting or whatever that is. And I think that's the really cool part of the way you set up this lead magnet, is that it engages that conversation and then invites them to continue. And you're still, like Lindsay was saying, on that same medium. So your people are meeting you on, in audio, we're continuing that conversation in audio. And I would guess for your demographic, you probably do have a lot of folks that enjoy listening without necessarily being attached to a screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing I'm thinking about in 2026, and I've been thinking about, and I just finished working with a cohort group on social media stuff, and people are like, you've been on social media for so long. And I'm like, yeah, but it's always changing and there's always stuff to learn, right? The thing that I think private podcasts have a lot of untapped potential for, and one of the things I'm going to be thinking about using it for this year, is seeing social media, seeing things like reels and like that really, really short form content as a way to, sort of get people to become problem aware, or like, this is the challenge that I'm having. I'm not a person who does a lot of like negative, like really like pushing on the pain point super hard, because I just don't feel great doing that. And maybe that's why I'm not like a gazillionaire, because I'm just feel that I'm not here to push on people's pain points all day long. But I do think that short form content can be a way to really just sort of get people to be like, oh, maybe this is me. And then with a longer form of content, right, you can then go deeper on that. And maybe you go deeper into the what, right? Into the solution, but maybe you don't necessarily talk about every single step that you're going to take to solve that problem, because that's what my program's for. And at some point, I mean, coaching is really helpful no matter what form it comes in, right? So I think the way I'm going to maybe think about using it, and I have to be a little bit clever because a lot of what I do, at least like on the lifting side, is very visual. But I might take some of my topics and record an audio component to that, or strip the audio out of the longer form content that I've already made, and then offer that as well if people want to listen. So I've experimented with a little bit of YouTube stuff too. For example, an unlisted video. I'll give you a quick example. There is a type of front squat where you put the barbell up on your front shoulders, and to get your fingers under the bar and your wrists into extension like that is really tough for a lot of people. Makes their wrists feel pretty horrible. And so I have a reel where I'm like, hey, if this makes your wrists totally hurt, there's another option that you could use called the Zercher squat, and you put the barbell across your elbows. And I'm like, okay, if you want the video, I'll walk you through it. And it was a super quick off the cuff. I just filmed it one take through. It was full of like, bloopers and things, but it was like, hey, here's 10 minutes of you and me, and I'm just going to show you how to do the Zercher squat. It's a great option for my audience, people over 40. If you've got carpal tunnel in your wrists, or you've got osteoarthritis in your hands, here's this other option. And putting that on YouTube super quick as an unlisted, I think that was great because it was really visual, but I can see other aspects of coaching that I could do an audio version of that for, and then offer that as it is a lead magnet. You're like, hey, and I can use it with my autoresponder on Instagram, right? Hey, comment the word, squat, and I'll send you a video of me talking you through XYZ. So I think that the private podcast has potential for that as well, where we're taking a deeper dive into a topic, but I'm still not, I'm not showing you maybe all the components of coaching. I'm not giving you an entire program here. If you want to work with me and get a program, you can still come and work with me. But it gives people that extra element. So people know me from the podcast. Maybe they're hearing me talk about the things that we talk about, but it's not as much related to how I would coach somebody in the gym. And now they can see me doing that. So I think there's a lot of different ways it could be used to deliver that more specific type of longer form content, but also keep it a little bit, keep their production value lower insofar
more of them.
Insofar as you're not just like, it has to look perfect. And now everybody's, when you have that video component of podcasting nowadays, there's so many people who are like, I've rented out this space and it looks so perfect. It's perfectly lit. And I'm like, I'm here in my kitchen. My dirty dishes are right there. That's like literally where we're recording this. But I think sometimes that can become a bit of it feels like it gets in the way. And so I can just pop on with my mic. I don't have to have my camera on, worry like how things are looking today. I can just record something super fast and put it up super easily. And that's the thing I really like about Hello Audio is that, and they're not paying me to say this. I could just
so you think?
I could just drag the file into the dashboard
or copy and paste the YouTube URL. It does have to be public though. It can't be unlisted, I'm pretty sure. So
and I can see that there's going to be some more appropriate use cases for it. Like I was saying, if it's a really visual, like here's how this should look when you're doing
squat. Yeah, totally.
Right. Versus some of those topics that people ask me about all the time. So
okay, can I pause you there for a sec?
Yeah.
Nora, I don't think we've thought through this as much, or maybe it's because it's like developed. So we have a ManyChat integration that we just launched.
Oh, my friend ManyChat
for the holidays, right? And as we're all coming back online, everyone's like, for me, February 1st is January 1st in my business. I'll say that because let's just say January has been a little bit of a, anyways, it felt really long. And then now I look up and I'm like, but what did I do? Anywho, all that to be said, this is an ongoing, use case in Hello Audio that I think like you're bringing up, and what I'm starting to like connect the dots on is, okay, we have this ManyChat integration where you now can like send a private podcast and we'll, get that information from ManyChat, not needed Zapier or anything. And so what's cool about what you're saying, I think is the piece that I like, is what you just said, the production value, guys. This is so much easier to send and easier even than like a PDF or a guide. And I'm kind of following that ManyChat person, the School of Bots. She does, so she works with very high profile people. And so she has these like bonkers numbers, but that also means she has a lot of freaking data, right? And she has mentioned something like, the simple PDF is back. That's what people want. And you know why? It's because of this. It's that tiny quick video of a reel that blows up. And it's like, I just need that quick answer. Like, I don't need your whole like spiel. I don't need maybe even like a masterclass pitch or anything like that. Like take me to the next thing. And I think about it where we're at right now, as you're talking about social media changing so much, is like, the Amazon influencer people, like, do you want this candle? Like, I'll send you the link. And it's like, it's just the candle. She's not sending you her kitchen, Amazon list, but we all know how to find that on Amazon. As you can tell, I get influenced. So all that to be said, it's fast. And those single videos stand by themselves. And I think there's something here, Nora, that I don't think I've totally thought through, where it's like, rather than being like, maybe this is it. It's like, we've talked a lot about, we have a current lead magnet. We have a few, but like the one that is about lead magnets, OBS, right? So we have Launch Your Audio Lead Magnet. And it's very like in the lead magnet, come up with this episode hook and come up with this. And that's all cool. Like 100% you should have that kind of lead magnet, and a many if you can. And I still stand by the fact that it's the easiest to create. But now, like, what if you just had a bunch of feeds that had like a little bit of content? Because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it is. And like, I'm just thinking through, like, how do you cut it down to make it even easier than a PDF if simple PDFs are back because I'm messaging for a very specific answer. And I think it also comes with, I need these AI prompts. Like it's very specific what people are creating PDFs around. And so like, why can't there be these private podcasts that don't have this like formula per se? I mean, they still could, but like, it's an episode, guys. You could make a 10-minute, one episode podcast and it doesn't matter. And like, we could have the, dynamic content on the front and the back. And like, I mean, don't just do it and not pitch something, please. But like, you have their email and you have maybe like a super easy way for them to subscribe to something and to listen. And what I'm also thinking through too, sorry, I'm like live brainstorming with you, Steph. You're
workshop it, go.
Let's do it. But like, it reminds me of Andrew Crowder when she came on like back in the day, right? And she just takes over people's podcast apps, right? If you even have a bunch of this tiny content and this person is guzzling it up, guess what's going to happen? Their super listener score is going to go up and you're going to see, hey, this person has grabbed all of these tiny podcasts and like, it looks like I'm everywhere. And maybe that's annoying at some point. I'll have to think through that a little bit, but it doesn't matter because the private podcast and the podcast app is an inbox and you are putting it in a place where someone actually checks versus a PDF that I'll tell you, when I like get these PDFs from people, these like quick PDFs, I open it in the app and like, again, same problem. I like zoom in, I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. The likelihood that I'm going to be like, okay, sometimes I send it to my Slack is like how I catch stuff is like my workflow. It's not great, but I'm just thinking about that and what gets lost. Like, because I'm not reading to the bottom and clicking a link because I need to buy her thing. I was like really just looking for that really tight answer. But if you're in my ear, that impact is like more intimate and more personal. And it might sound silly that someone would want a podcast about an AI automation. So to your point, it's like we have to be nuanced about what could be delivered. But like, I don't know. There's something here, I think, that I just am now thinking through.
In that case, why couldn't it be both, right? Why couldn't it be you've got your deliverable, right? I don't know, you've got your prompts written out or whatnot. And you're giving me an idea because my primary opt-in for my lifting program is 7 days of my lifting program. And so I started off delivering just a PDF, which I'm going to, I honestly fuck PDFs. Like, I don't want a PDF from anybody. I'm like, it's going to go to the Gmail graveyard. Let's be real. Occasionally I'll open it, but then I'm like, it lives in here. I want it to live on my phone and be really consumable. So one thing that I'm thinking of is I had my PDF. This is a guide for lifting over 40 as all the things that I need people to know if they want to get started. And I then started to put the actual workouts on email as well. So I would email them out to my clients or out to people who have responded and said, hey, please send me the guide. Okay, I'm also going to deliver it via email. I want to also deliver that relationship and start to nurture that relationship. And I do think it's going to be hard in an audio format to go, okay, well, day one, first thing that you're going to do is you're going to do 3 sets of 6 to 8 reps of that's not going to be, that's what the email is for, right? That's what the PDF is for. But on all the preamble to all of that is all of the things that I'm talking people through. I'm like, okay, here's why strength training is important for women over 40, right? With osteoporosis and hormonal shifting, right? We're starting to lose bone density if we don't do something about that. We tend to be less active. So we're going to start potentially losing muscle if we're not working on that. Here's how we address flexibility within a structured program. Because again, being perfect is not what we're after. So you just gave me the idea that I'm going to actually record all of that and give that to people too as a way for them to hear my voice, for them to get to know me a little bit better, rather than just a PDF that's going to go die in their Gmail graveyard, Yep. So I'm going to do that.
Here's how I tell people to fix this. So this is a strategy I use. So I like people to have a feed that has different episodes that have specific hooks that are standalone, that could be used separately, right? So that when you have a reel that's around that specific hook, or you want to get a better night's sleep, here you go, right? Now that could be in your feed of why that's so important, right?
But and plus all the questions that she answers in that
100%,
in your other feed, those could all be repurposed.
Right. So they're all in one feed. But what I do with the ManyChat integration, so I do like to get email addresses. So I don't just like to send links. And I've had people that want to just send the link and then use it as a reverse opt-in. We can do that strategy too.
I've been seeing that.
The other thing is to get someone's email address before you send a link. So with Hello Audio, we can actually send a shareable link to a specific episode. So it's not a subscribe link to the whole feed, but it's a shareable link to that episode. So that's one thing that I've asked that we've directed people to do. And then the other thing I've had people do is maybe it's, a little bit more tech savvy. To be fair, it's really not. If you have the ability to create your own webpage, you can put the embeddable player on there. So it does link that way you're sending traffic to your site. And then that way you have the ability to control all the other shit on that page. So it's, then, do you want more tips like this? Yeah. Then they can subscribe to the whole feed right there. But you're kind of getting them that sample slice or that taste but it's all within that feed because it's all these different episodes that
and you're skipping, at Hello Audio, there is definitely some friction because we have to get them to hit subscribe in their player of choice. And so what Nora's bringing up is like, hey, you're just trying to send them one helpful thing.
Get them the info.
And that's awesome. Here's the shareable link. You get traffic. And then there's a pop-up I have a whole feed of, these questions or whatever. Or here's my public podcast where I do this. Whatever you want to promote. Then you get the person the information, you give value, and you allow them to hear you without. So that friction of that subscribe is what you're kind of deleting there. I like that. That's cool.
It's working really well.
With that, Nora.
Yeah.
As we sit here and we talk with people about stuff, it's like, dang it, we should do that.
Well, I love that there's a ManyChat integration now. I'm going to have to look that up because I do know my way around the Zapier, but I would rather not deal with it. I think now that, it's got a Copilot integration, it's a little bit better, but every time I see a Zapier thing, I'm just like, no. So that makes it a lot easier. And that's also reducing the friction for creators, right? For people who are coaches or whatnot. Most people, I'm going to just go out on a limb here that do online business, and most coaches, most fitness trainers, they're like, Zapier, what? What is, it's like a seven circle of hell. Know what Zapier is? You're just like, why do I have this information in my brain? It's not easy to use. It's not great. So necessary, but a lot of people are just like, this is too hard. But if you can make that process of people getting that link to their listeners or to their social media feed or whatever it is and make it really, really easy, then that's a huge benefit without having to go through Zapier.
Yeah. I think with the integration also brings to light that you can put a private podcast in as a lead magnet. I think it's maybe even a little more of that because as we talk about friction, the other friction that we experience is the delivery of the, RSS feed. And if it gets marked a certain way. And so if they're in social, they know where to go. Right. And I think that data is interesting from a perspective of click-through rate and stuff because they know it's there. And so why are they not maybe, they're not feeling like they have to listen or whatever. And so I think from a marketing standpoint, whereas with email, you're just like, okay, we have this black box of, robots opening emails now and you know what I mean? And spam and filtering, and it's kind of not great. And so when you're trying to analyze the effectiveness, I guess, of a lead magnet or something like that, that ends up being a gray area. But in social, it's kind of just the person knows it's there, so they're either going to click it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes it easier to go back to that too.
100%.
I guess the way you set up the feed too. There's a million things in my saved Instagram. I'm like, I'll save that reel and go back to it later, and then it's in amongst 50 million other saved things, and I'm like, I can't even find what I'm looking for. Versus if they know it's you and it's that feed you've created, and it's got those little bite-sized topics in it, people can much more easily find it. They know where to go. And I love that idea of putting it on a web page too. I think that's brilliant because getting
Pixel
people,
them.
I think, back to the website these days is hard. And there's, there's a lot of good stuff there. So
that's when you get the poker around her. That's what we got to love poking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. Okay, cool. So you have a new feed maybe that you could create. Is there anything else you're sitting on feed-wise?
I don't know. I'm like, wow, did I just workshop something too here? No, I think the biggest thing when people ask me, how you've worked for yourself now full-time online for 13 years, what's the secret? I don't feel like there is a secret, but I will say, I know that there's a lot of people who feel super intimidated to, open up a new avenue for communication with their audience, or they're like, this is going to take too much time. I can't tell you the number of times I've tried to, get my TikTok going again or whatever. And I'm just like, I just can't. I'm overwhelmed, by that, but I'm not overwhelmed by the idea of having a lot more direct control over something like that. I have my favorite social media place I hang out. It happens to be Instagram. I'm Gen X, whatever. You can figure that out.
Same.
It's all right.
I'm an elder millennial, so very close.
People are like, well, when did you get on Instagram? I'm like 2011. And they're like, oh, I was in middle school. So,
yes.
that's
you
fun.
get it. So we all have our favorites, but I think having the audio feed gives you a way to much more easily connect with people and to diversify what you do a little bit more. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be your main thing. And I think people also need to be aware of going in the opposite direction, which is where you spread yourself way too thin. But I also know people who are like, I don't really want to have an email list, or the idea of creating one, or the cost of making one, because you've collected all these email addresses and now you're paying, I don't know, like $500 a month to store all of those in your active campaign. A lot of these things can present as huge barriers to people just diversifying even a little bit. And I think we've seen, when TikTok shut down for 12 hours last year, we've had Instagram
something's happening too. So
we've had Instagram. Instagram's gone down and everybody's like, holy shit, what if this just went away? And I think we've all had those moments collectively where it's like, okay, people are like, get your email list started. Yeah. And it's like, oh God, really? So I think that this is a nice way for people to have a little bit more diversity in how they connect with people without the massive lift of creating your own weekly podcast that then you have to show up and deliver.
Or newsletter is the push that's happening right now.
Your email newsletter, and like getting that off the ground. Like, I think if you only deliver content in one way and you're looking to add something else to just branch out or just connect with people in a different way, that's very as streamlined as you can make it. I mean, all of this stuff takes work and know-how and whatnot. But I think that the private audio feed is one of the simplest ways to do that, and is one of the easiest ways to kind of lower the barrier to entry and just say, okay, it's time for me to not just rely on Reels anymore, or it's time for me to not just rely on TikTok anymore. What else can I do to connect with people that doesn't feel super overwhelming to get started? And I think that you guys have made that actually really approachable for people. It's so easy. It's so intuitive to just set it up and get things going. Like, you don't have to know a bunch of like coding and all that stuff to make it happen. So yeah, I think 2026 could be the year for people of just having one other thing in how they connect with their audience. And if you can do audio, it's so powerful. I mean, we are creatures of the spoken word. We tell stories, right? If you can tell stories and connect with people in that way, then it goes a long way.
Thanks for saying that. It's very intentional. And I think it's hard, right? Like, we're a software company. I think, we've all purchased software here. There's a lot of people listening. And I don't think I've ever purchased software thinking, yeah, that's going to be easy, right? Like, ever. Like, usually that's just not the thing you think about. And I think, as owners of Hello Audio, and having that experience with other software, like, we made it very intentional about trying to make sure that you didn't have that feeling when you got started, and that it could be, the easiest way to get the maximum ROI off of an effort as a business owner. I think, as business owners, as parents, we have limited time, we have limited energy, we have limited resources. And I think it's important, and probably a Gen X, like also Aquarius, like efficiency is my love language, right? So it's like very, like, I don't love wasting time. It's not fun, and it drives me nuts. And so I think, as we look at Hello Audio, I think that was very important to all of us to make sure that people felt like it was easy, and that it is easy, and they could do it in a way that got like the maximum benefit for their lives and their business without feeling like it was a burden for them. So I appreciate you saying that, because that's intentional, and we love to hear it.
Yeah, I think like creating a podcast from scratch that's going to go out and as a public facing thing it sounds like it'll be easy, but it is much more complicated than creating something like a private podcast feed through the interface that you guys have. It feels so intimidating you're like, oh my God, I got to put myself out on this podcast feed. It's going to go out to everybody. Whereas if you say, hey, I have this specific thing, if you'd like it, come listen along. You're making it very easy to upload it and for people to access that information. feels a little bit different. I don't know if it's just me. Nora, you said you're an Aquarius. I'm a Pisces with a lot of Capricorn. So
Nice.
I definitely have this I just want to help everybody. And then I'm like, it also needs to make sense. And there has to be a strategy. So I think I go a lot based off of feeling and intuition and stuff. And for me, if it just feels like this insurmountable task and it's not something I can tackle very easily, then I'm going to find all sorts of just ways to put things off. So, saying something like, I'm starting a podcast sounds it's very official, but this feels very different for some reason. It always has to me. And it feels much less permanent, I guess. You could decide to deliver this one thing and do it for a week. And I have done that where I've delivered, where it's an audio, essentially like an audio event. We're doing it for a week. Mm-hmm. It's very timely based. It's like start and end, and then we're going to enroll in the program. You could use it for a challenge. I mean, if you're a fitness coach, use it for a challenge to get people excited about your program. If you're going to be launching it, as a way to connect and do it that way. I mean, there's so many ways that you can be creative with it. You just have to be willing to try it. I feel like be willing to try something new. It might not work. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm, going to take this lead magnet that I have, which is a multiple page PDF, and I'm just going to narrate through the content. I'm so curious if it actually increases how many people are listening through and actually getting the content. I bet it will. I bet it would.
It has for other users that have done the same thing, or they've recorded the accompanying guide, or in the ad lib, right? There's a question maybe or a thing in your PDF, and you're like, also, okay, here's where people, I know what you're thinking when you read that question. All of a sudden you're kind of giving more context and maybe talking about where they might get stuck or a way to answer that thing, or you know what I mean? It provides a level of intimacy and more connection than a PDF would.
Client, essentially case studies, right? Mm-hmm. Yes. So talking about osteoporosis, and I can think off the top of my head of at least 3 or 4 people I've worked with. So that is in my guide, right? Talking about osteoporosis and what's going on. And I can think of at least 3 or 4 people off the top of my head who have done my program. They've had a redo on their DEXA scan, and they've gained back bone density.
That's awesome. Amazing. I'm 2 bone scans in. So yes.
Right? So you can add those pieces as well, especially if you're a coach and you work with people and say, hey, I can think of, and you don't have to use the name, but I'm thinking of a client that I have that had this similar challenge to you, or you might be thinking this won't work for me, but here's this person that did twice a week on my program. You don't need to do 6 days a week. You do twice a week and still see improvement. So I think that's that element of the spoken word where you can really add that richness in that storytelling and say, hey, there are real people who I worked with that have seen improvements in these areas. So you're going to probably make that connection with somebody who's listening and thinking, will it work for me?
Totally.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to lead with that and make that your dynamic ad insertion on the front, just like an off the cuff, really powerful statement. And then you dive in. So the person's like, oh shit, she increased her DEXA scan. What did she do? What do you have to say about it or whatever? And it also just is seeding the program, which should be what a lead magnet does, right? And that can do the selling, right? I think that's also part of it, right? It doesn't feel salesy when you're just like, I know this woman, she's amazing. I'm so happy that this happened to her. And now here's her voice. And so there's that too.
The other thing that just popped into my mind, and this is just me as in my own business values and my personal values on things. Obviously, I work in an industry where things like before and after pictures are the standard.
God, yes.
Yeah. Well, now we have AI too. I'm just like, I don't believe anything on the internet right
I know. It's crazy. AI is, anyway. Yeah. So I think in an industry, whether you're a nutrition coach, a fitness coach, oftentimes those of us who intentionally choose to not use before and after pictures of clients are like, how are we going to get across this message or this idea that somebody has seen an improvement in other ways? And so to tell a story, and I do this in email too, but it hits different, right? To tell a story about a client that I've had who has seen her bone density go from X to Y and it's improved this much in this many months, or somebody's lifting this many pounds and then now they can lift that many pounds. There are so many other ways that you can hint at client success or talk about client success that does not require that direct visual. And a lot of my clients are really private. They're a little bit older. I rarely use client pictures of even them lifting because they're just like, I'd rather not, it's not what I want to do. I don't want to put myself on social media in that way. So in a world that's very visually driven in terms of client results, being able to tell that story or relay it in audio of these are the improvements that people have experienced is actually, I think, a pretty cool blue ocean strategy for people that are like me and don't rely on before and after pictures to sell our programs.
That is a really good point.
Yeah. I just thought of that. So
it's good. It's good.
We're learning a lot of things on this podcast today.
Hey, it happens. Us too, right? Like we're literally out here trying to figure it out with you.
Yeah.
Super fun. This has been a really good episode. We covered a lot. We covered lead magnets. We have new lead magnets that we're going to switch. We covered even course programming and resource libraries for coaching clients. So hopefully our audience, I know they'll get a lot out of this no matter the industry. So hopefully we have a lot of ahas. That's what we like to have, bringing on people that are doing different things on the internet. Nora, do you want to do our closing question that we typically do?
Yes. So this is a question that we ask a lot of our guests. If there was a private podcast of your life's musings, what would it be called?
Oh, no. Sarcastic as fuck, but I love you, I think would be something like that. Just of like, I think a lot of people see me or they think I present in a certain way. And actually a client of mine who recently signed on to work with me was like, I've been following you for so long, but I was always super intimidated by you. And she's like, I'm so happy to know that you're just not at all what I thought. So I'm not as sarcastic as I used to be. I try to tone that down a little bit because when I taught high school here on the West Coast, sarcasm is not just sort of part of the way people communicate. Anyhow, sometimes I think it can come across a little strong, not even just physically, but just in terms of like how I show up. I think people also think I'm really tall in real life. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just like, they're like, you're so short. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's all good. But I think I have this exterior that people assume certain things about me or I present in a certain way. But if you actually work with me and get to know me, like I am a really empathetic person. I really try to understand where people are coming from and just like see the humanity in people. And so, yeah, it would probably be something like that. Like we can cuss and curse and whatnot.
Yeah,
it's all from a place of deep love and wanting the best for you.
Love that. That also feels very Gen X. So yes, I'm here for it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Goonies never say die, we're out here kind of making our way. And at the same time, it also reminds me of, and okay, West Coasters don't hate me, but I grew up on the East Coast and there's a saying that East Coasters they're not nice, but they are kind. And on the West Coast, it's more like you're nice, but you're not kind. And like people in the subway be like,
Midwest is there.
Like, what are you doing? Right? Like, get off the stairs. You're blocking the stairs. And they'll like help you carry your stuff up the subway stairs, stuff like that. But like, I think that in a way, Gen X were a little bit like that, where we're just sort of like, get your shit together and like, come here. Like, I'll feed you lunch. Like, It's okay. We're going to make this happen. So I think we're very much like, we're done taking this
pretty
bullshit.
Much my parenting style right there. Yeah.
But we'll also really love you at the same time because, we know that that's important. So anyway.
I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, when you revamp your lead magnet, we'll have you come back up.
Yeah.
So definitely send us an update. Let us know how it goes.
I actually, since I have everything plugged in right now, I might just do it now after this call.
Oh, I love it. Get it done. Yeah. And also let us know if you play with ManyChat too, because that's definitely something within the next quarter. I don't know, maybe by the end of this quarter, we want to start collecting, seeing who's doing stuff around that. So,
okay.
Yeah, that's like a front too that I think we don't play enough on social media, so it's hard for us kind of as a brand. We're not all over social doing a ton of content. So there's not a lot of us testing things. So we rely on our users too for the most part. But yeah, so definitely keep us posted and we'll have you back on.
Will do. Thanks.